I'd much rather here to learn from Elia Cox, who's coming over from Snowfly. Um, he has an interesting passion for psychology, technology, and operations. So a very interesting triangle that he is focusing on. He's always seeking for entrepreneurial opportunities and constantly goes into new things. He is skilled in organizational operations, software development, team building, and education. So again, they're building a very nice mix into the place. And I'm very curious what he has to share with us about Snowfly and what the team is doing over there. So welcome to the show, Laya.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. So maybe tell us all about Snowfly. What is it all about?
All about Snowfly. Snowfly is the actual perfect model that brings all of my interests into one place. So we're an engagement company.
Mhm,
We do all kinds of engagements for all kinds of industries. We focus a lot on contact centers, but we're in banks, hospitals, financial organizations, logistics companies, hospitality, restaurants. And the idea is everybody needs to be engaged in what they're doing. So we just take any activities, culture, self-reporting, and then we push it through our software and through our flows to get people excited about what they're doing and what their life is supposed to be.
mhm,
Um, Most of the time, our focus is on helping people improve their productivity.
mhm,
A lot of times, it's about recognition and making people enjoy their job.
mhm, mhm.
Um, but most of the time, it is literally just figuring out how to get people engaged in their organization so they care more about their job and their responsibility.
Very good. So maybe if you could tell us a little bit about the company, something interesting, right? So people can understand a bit or characterize the company a little bit from you. Maybe you can tell me like maybe I don't know how many clients you're working with or how many visitors on the page and prizes you've won, just to give people an idea about the company.
Yeah. So Snowflake's actually been around for about 20 years. We were the pioneers in digital gamification
Mm-hmm.
back when our original founder started it. So today, what we've done is we're something very interesting that we're really excited about this year is we're the first company to have married gamification and engagement to speech analytics and text analytics, meaning that we take all of those hundreds and thousands of data points that come from interactions and can tie them into granular engagement pieces. And so what that means is not only can you give people scores for how they're interacting, but you can help them and coach them and train them on how to make very specific and small changes in the way they interact. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a big differentiator, big fun thing that we're doing in 2020, especially with the pandemic and with people working from home. That monitoring and being able to give nudges and small little things has been a big unique factor we've been able to bring to the market.
Could you tell me, just like for everybody who's listening in, like who would be the type of clients that are using Snowflake?
Well, that is a tough question because we are a big smattering all over the place. But the majority of our clients are contact centers.
Mm-hmm.
We work with collections agencies. We work with sales organizations, in and outbound. A lot of customer supports. We do a lot of technical support companies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the other portion of our clients are really just employees. We actually just recently talked with a pet grooming company because they wanted to keep track of their customer compliments. They wanted to make sure that their customer satisfaction scores stayed high and that they had repeat customers. So we helped them build. The theory behind their program is to build um, a a focus on customer interactions and customer satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So we trained and engaged their employees to know how to speak to their clients, that kind of thing. So it really fits in almost any industry and almost any circumstance. And most of the time, it's process automation, people that have lots of data.
Mm-hmm.
Contact centers have lots of data, so that's usually our go-to.
Makes a lot of sense. So what would be sort of, let's maybe we're talking about contact centers as one group that are using
Mhm.
quite heavily Snowflake. What would be a top client acquisition channel? Like how do they get to know about Snowfly, right? Because it's
Yeah.
also, a concept that they have to grasp first in order to, get started. So how do they get to know about you guys?
Yeah, that's actually one of our biggest lead sources. Is For a lot of years we stood alone as a one-off sales company, but we were that small engagement one-off sales, so people had to come look for us specifically.
Mhm.
But in the last year or two, we have been integrating ourselves into partners, and so we're trying to find scheduling software, phone dialers, workforce management solutions,
Mm-hmm.
all of these bigger players, the SAPs, the Microsofts, the Five Nines, those kind of companies in the world, and attaching ourselves to them to be extensions of their data. So
Mm-hmm.
that has been a huge shift in our lead generation and our conversion rates recently. Is being a partner support rather than a standalone application.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Makes a lot of sense. So through partnerships, basically, it's being distributed there. I see.
When you're a small company, you have to leverage that to be found, because there's so much noise out there right now
Mm-hmm.
with social media and Google and search engines.
Any advice for somebody that is running? A lot of founders are listening in as well. Like any advice on somebody that is looking for those types of partnerships? Like what has helped you to establish them and to sort of be in a way like be connected to their offerings?
Yeah, I actually have some strong advice on this. So I did it wrong, and
Mm-hmm.
it took me a long time to figure that out. But what I have seen over the years that I've been leading the company is the success comes from finding a very successful niche, and then being able to fulfill that niche perfectly,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there be able to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did at the beginning is we were an everything to everybody company, and we didn't have a directed message.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a huge mistake on my part, because we could do all of those things, but when people would find us, they would see so many different things that it didn't fit their needs, and so our
Yep.
conversions would fall off.
Yep.
Um, so we've actually changed our marketing message according to the channel in which the leads come in. So if we're coming through a partner, we make sure to have this conversation about what the partner offers,
Yep.
and then we upsell over the years, rather than trying to throw the encyclopedia at them of everything we can do.
Gotcha. Would you go as far as, for example, on the website, would you have been then like formulating the sort of the niches on the website rather than being generic? Like how far did you go in like, niching down, let's say?
Well, interestingly, our website is one of our least successful sources of lead generation.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that just comes from my inexperience. I'm not a terrific marketer, and
Mm-hmm.
we just actually started really getting into. I just hired a marketer that's helping us make those changes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so our website is still a very throw spaghetti at the wall and see what hits, and we're slowly making those transitions to different landing pages and different campaigns and different lead sources. So what we've done, and where we've seen the most success, is going to companies like Gartner and Capterra,
Mm-hmm.
or SourceForge, because we can create very specific listings, and we can create campaigns around those listings that aren't specifically dependent on our website.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we have seen huge amounts of success with those kind of targeted campaigns. We have great referrals and great leads,
Mm-hmm.
and great reviews from our clients, and so using those targeted leads has really helped us narrow in on that sales process.
Gotcha. And when you say listings, you mean like being listed on Capterra, for example, and like how could you describe a bit more detail for somebody who's maybe trying to learn from what you're doing?
To look from the, sure, yeah. So the cool part about Capterra specifically is we don't list Snowfly. We're able to list our modules. So we list on Capterra, we list our gamification product,
Gotcha.
and we list our engagements product, and our speech analytics product, and our incentive and commissions product.
Mm-hmm.
And so people that are looking for incentives don't get bombarded with gamification and speech analytics that they don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
and they just see our targeted message for incentives. And then obviously gives us that opportunity for an upsell later, but we know what to say because they came in on that listing, and we know what to sell to them specifically.
Very good. Still quickly touching on the website, what role does the website then still play? Does it still take a part in generating leads or client?
It does. We still get a lot of, we do get organic leads. We do get people that find us, and just because of search engine optimization. But generally, at today, and hopefully this isn't true in 2021,
Mm-hmm.
but today we use our website a lot for our research and feature lists. So
Gotcha.
we refer people to the site, but we usually give them very specific pages or the white papers or articles, rather than just saying go to snowfly.com.
Gotcha. Two more questions about the website. I know you love the other channels, but I would love to it's always good to learn, how they actually relate to each other. So
Mhm.
what would you say is the major strength of the website at the moment? Is it the ability to convert if somebody comes, or is it the quality of the leads that you're getting through, or is it maybe the experience that you can provide?
Yeah, for sure. It's the quality of the leads.
Mhm.
If people have found us and go through our site to fill out our form,
Yep.
it means they've either heard of us, they've already experienced this in a previous job or opportunity, or they've hit the proper SEO and they know exactly what they're looking for.
Yep.
So we have a very, very high conversion rate on those web leads.
Hmm.
They're just our lowest volume of those leads. So
Gotcha.
yes, high conversion rate, and they look phenomenal if you just looked at the percentages, but but the volume is actually quite low.
Gotcha.
And
Makes a lot
again,
of
it's
sense.
because we're so general and broad on the website.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, that's my follow-up question would have been to ask, so where do you see the room for improvement
Yep.
on the page actually? Is it
And I am so excited to get to that, to have our marketing team really be able to target those different modules.
gotcha?
I'm so excited for that.
Awesome. Very cool. Okay, so what are they going to do first? Like, what do you think are the couple of first things that they're going to be working on?
Most likely, we will be separating our the speech analytics
Hmm.
piece,
Hmm.
and make sure that that is completely modularized, because most people that are looking for speech analytics don't even make the connection of the importance of an engagement program in conjunction. Most of the time, they see it as big aggregated dashboards with very generalized data, and we're kind of the opposite, where we put the data in the hands of users, of people, and that's a very receptive message. People love that message, but when they go to a site and they see engagements and speech analytics, it generally it can be confusing. What am I looking at? What is this product? So that will most likely be our first step, is to separate those two modules very clearly, to be able to give that message of speech analytics separate from all the other stuff that we can do.
Very good. Cool. So coming back to the product, what would you say is sort of the main competitive advantage of using the product?
Our gamification and engagement programs are second to none. Our clients, when they come with us, stay forever. Our longest client's been with us for 16 years.
Mhm.
And it's because of the powerful administrative tools and the gamification features that we use. And the way you introduced me at the beginning,
Mhm.
both of my parents are PhD psychologists. I've been interested in psychology my entire life. I've been interested in education. We actually homeschool our children, and we use those same principles that engage my children in learning and caring about learning in our applications. So rather than just throwing features like badges and leaderboards, which work temporarily, they don't work in the long run if your program is based on those foundations. So our competitive advantage is that we focus on what the human brain needs to feel fulfilled,
Mhm. Mhm.
and then we build the engagement and gamification pieces around that fulfillment.
Very cool.
And that is really our big differentiator in the market for our speech analytics and for all of the other products as well.
Awesome. If we look behind the curtain of Snowfly, how would you describe sort of the sales and marketing being structured at the moment?
Um, yes, behind the curtain, it really is referrals.
Mhm.
We have people love us when they work with us, and so they'll get promotions, or they'll get new jobs, and they'll take us with them. And so we've been real lazy
Mhm.
on our sales and marketing. And yes, this is being recorded, and yes, it's going out to the world. We've been real lazy because those leads, those referrals, those upsells have been enough for us to organically grow and be very healthy as a company. Um, so that's our behind the curtain, but that's also why I bring up the 2021. We are now making those moves to actually go out and actively seek leads rather than just passively let them come.
Gotcha.
And I think that will make a huge difference into the growth of the company and what that behind the curtain actually looks like.
Okay. Awesome. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about you as a founder or as a leader in a company.
Mhm.
Um, what type of content do you consume? How do you educate yourself?
It's a great question. Um, One of the best things I ever did was I joined and became a part of a couple of professional groups.
Hmm.
And it took me a while to find the groups that I wanted. I started at Contact Center Week. That was the first one I joined. It's a large contact center organization that gets together 2 to 3 times a year. They're big ones in Vegas. The problem I had with that organization, it was so big. There were 100,000 members, maybe more, and we were this small company that got tucked into the side. I got a couple of speaking engagements and keynotes, but we were still so small that it was hard to break out of that 100,000. So we went out and found a couple of specific professional organizations, and what they do is they curate information that is applicable to what I'm interested in. So we have a technical professional organization that we belong to, and we have a couple of general industry professional organizations. And my advice to everybody out there is go find a professional group that has something to do with your industry, and it doesn't have to be exact, but close. Because the information that they curate, it kicks me off onto all the tangents that I need to bring industry knowledge, cutting edge technology, best practices, and I don't have to spend my time digging through all of the garbage that's out there. And I can find, I'm connected with these huge companies, these Aloricas, these Hershey's, the Disney Worlds, and I can see what are these cutting edge companies doing, what technology are they using, what theories are they looking for, what's their roadmap, and I can belong to those keynotes. I can belong to those
I
to
think.
that information curation.
And how do you do this? Obviously, COVID being around, like how do you leverage those groups at the moment? Is there like online meetings that you're joining,
Uh-huh.
or what?
Yeah, they're not as effective, sadly, but all of those groups that I'm part of have all moved to like webinars
Mhm.
and virtual meetups and those kind of things. So it's still an opportunity to network. I've gotten very good at Zoom and GoToMeeting and sending people postcards and saying hi and virtual drinks and that kind of stuff. It's definitely it took some changing, and it's definitely not as easy as it was. But I still feel like it's a huge value add, again, because my name is out there,
Mhm.
and so is Snowfly's name. And so it's um, a lot of times I sat back and twiddled my thumbs and said, if it's a good product, they'll come find us. And
Very
I
good.
learned very quickly that's not a good strategy.
For somebody who would be sort of like sort of starting off with positioning himself as a founder or as a sales
Mhm.
head of sales in those professional groups, like what would be one or two pieces of advice that you would give? Like, like how do you define which group works for you, and
Yeah.
maybe how do you sort of do the first steps? What would you tell them?
There are two things that I wish I could tell myself 5 years ago. The first thing I wish I could have told myself is um, I am a product guy. So I have an accounting and computer science background. That's my
Mhm.
training.
Mhm.
And so I built this incredible product with an accounting and computer science brain and background.
Mhm.
And I built this awesome team that of engineers and all this cool stuff, this automation and machine learning and all this cool stuff. And none of us had any idea how to tell anybody about it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm still recovering from from that.
Mhm.
So my first piece of advice that I would give myself is you have to market first, and then and you have to have a market person in charge of product.
Mhm.
Because if you put a product person in front of product, they will build what I built.
Mhm. Mhm.
And well, it works really well, and it's sexy and it's beautiful and it's automated and it's all those things. If nobody knows about it, it doesn't do anybody any good. And
Mhm.
I made that mistake as an initial founder. I jumped in because I thought the product was great and I had this great idea, but
Mhm.
I didn't have a marketer.
Mhm. Mhm.
The second piece of advice was the networking. Again, with my background, I actually started out very introverted, and thanks to my wife, she pushed me and encouraged me, and I have become much more targetedly extroverted. I don't know if that's even a phrase,
Mhm.
but it took me a while to get myself out of my shell and not just sit behind my computer to build, but to actually go out and talk to people. And so my second piece of advice is when I saw us turn the corner, it was because I started getting interested in what other people were doing, and I asked them questions that I legitimately cared about.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when people saw that I actually cared about them, they were suddenly very interested in me as a person and me as a network.
Mhm.
And suddenly, it took a while, but I built that network of people that cared about me. And now I can't go a week of my life without some part of my network contacting me or sharing something with me or growing with me.
Okay.
And took a long time, but every founder needs to have that network.
Mhm.
And if they sit behind their computer and send emails, it'll never happen.
Gotcha. And it sounds like actually that physical, that local aspect is quite important from what you're describing, right?
It was surprising. And before COVID, I made it I made it a point to be at the local events at these professional organizations I was a part of, and
Mhm.
meet people and go to the after parties,
Mhm.
and just connect with people on a personal level.
Mhm.
COVID has been harder,
Mhm.
but I'm still trying to do the same kind of things and meet people even digitally. But yeah, locally is much easier, because my company is global. It's a little bit trickier, and it takes a little bit more travel and a little bit more dedication on my part.
I see. Very cool. Yeah. So since we're slowly coming to an end the interview, I would love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready
Sure.
for those? Cool.
Yeah.
They're a little bit of a surprise for our guests, so I hope they're okay. Okay. So what's the last book you read?
Habit by Charles Duhigg.
Hmm. What is the one single thing that your company is focused on at the moment?
Marketing.
Hmm. You mentioned it. If there would be no boundaries in technology, what would be one thing that you would wanted to have fixed for your company today?
Oh, my ability to feed all of my information through an artificial intelligence engine, so that
Hmm.
I could find the trends of my users' activities within my system.
Very cool. What's the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
It was revenue growth in the year of COVID.
And you briefly touched on it, but I'm still going to ask the question. If today would be your first day working on Snowfly, what would be one advice that you would give yourself?
um, Start with a network. Start on the outside and then work in.
Very good. Thanks a lot for being on the show, Elia. I've really appreciated you being part of Pathway Presents. If somebody would be forgetting everything about the interview, I want to give you the last word. What would be one thing that they should remember about Snowfly?
Um, that people matter. I know this isn't really Snowfly the company,
Mhm.
but technology, data, analytics, AI, it's all great, but it's still people that matter. And if you don't think about the people, no silver bullet technology out there will fix your problems.
Mhm. Very good. Thanks for being part of Pathway Presents.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.